to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I am going to talk about the notion that the NFL is a passing league. And I'm going to prove that wrong, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying it's not important to be able to throw the football. Of course, you have to be able to air it out. And I'm not saying you can't even get by without a great running game if you have a supremely talented quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes. But the ground game is just as important as it's ever been. I don't care about the passing yards. I don't care. The ground game sets up the pass. Everything in the NFL is about being unpredictable. And when you could run the football the way that Tennessee Titans did yesterday with Derrick Henry, that is what wins football games, especially as you get into the playoffs. When it gets cold, when it gets brutal, and you could wear out your opponent physically. The best defense to a great quarterback is a ground game. And us as Giants fans should know that better than anybody. 2008 Super Bowl, and don't tell me it was a much different time. Tom Brady threw for 50 touchdowns that year. 2008 Super Bowl, a big reason why the Giants were able to beat the Patriots was because they were able to establish dominance on the ground. A big reason why they went on that playoff run is because they were able to establish dominance on the ground. That first drive, the Giants chewed up like 10 minutes running the ball with that of a Brandon Jacobs. And you've seen Derrick Henry do that over this playoff run. He's had 2 games now where he's had over 30 carries, he's had like 180 yards in each of the games, or probably even more than that. And he has been unbelievable for the Tennessee Titans. And he has really proven that if you could run the football like that, you could beat anybody. This was a team that snuck into the playoffs. They just knocked out the hotshot Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Why? Because they established dominance. They kept that offense on the field. They kept the defense fresh. They were able to create some turnovers. And that is how you win football games at the end of the day. Football is the same game it's always been. It's just that people pass a lot more. But the run game still sets up the pass. The run game sets up the play action. The run game makes you much less predictable on the offensive end. And as Giants fans, you should be eating this up because I'm watching that Tennessee Titan game last night. I'm calling the game. And I'm like, this is Giants football. This is why we took this guy second overall. This is why we got Saquon Barkley. And when I hear Joe Judge talk, that's what gets me fired up. Because that's what Joe Judge sounds like. He sounds like he wants to be a Tennessee Titans-like team, a fundamental team, a team that jams it down your throat. And the Giants have got to get back to that. And having Saquon Barkley on the team, if you can improve the offensive line, we may be that type of team again. That team where the New York Giants were winning Super Bowls. And in this video, I'm going to prove to you guys, I'm going to look at the 3 most recent seasons. And I'm going to prove to you guys that running is what wins. Like I said, there are some outliers. The Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. Andy Reid's a phenomenal offensive mind. Aaron Rodgers on another planet. But more often than not, you have to be able to establish the run to have success in the NFL. Like I said, especially in the playoffs. And if you intend to beat an upper echelon quarterback like the Giants did with Tom Brady, like the Giants did with an Aaron Rodgers, you have to have a ground game to keep that defense fresh, to get after the quarterback, to close out the game late in the game, and to win the time of possession and to wear your opponent down. Something that the New York Giants have not been able to do consistently since their offensive line has fallen apart over the last 8 years. And it's something we got to get back to. The Titans have a great offensive line. They got a guy on that offensive line that a lot of New York Giants fans are hoping that we may potentially sign a free agency in a Jack Conklin. But you've seen the Titans establish dominance, and it's why a lot of people got them going to the Super Bowl now after the way they've looked the first 2 weeks in these playoffs, even with a 9-7 record. But I'm going to bring up statistical evidence that's going to show you guys why the ground game is just as important as it's ever been. Let's take a quick look at the stats of 2017 through 2019 in terms of the top 10 rushing leaders in terms of team run offense. And let's see how many of them made the playoffs. We're going to start with 2017. 2017, you take a look at the playoff teams. You had the Pats, Steelers, Jaguars, Chiefs, Titans, Bills, Eagles, Vikings, Rams, Saints, Panthers, and the Falcons made the playoffs. Let's take a look at the top 10. Jaguars, they made the playoffs that year. They went to the AFC Championship, led the league in rushing. Cowboys narrowly missed the playoffs. The Eagles won it, but they narrowly missed the playoffs, losing out in the division. They finished second. The Eagles, there we go, we just said them. They won the division. They were third in rushing. And the Carolina Panthers, they actually won the Super Bowl, of course. The Carolina Panthers, they made the playoffs. They were fourth. The New Orleans Saints, again, made the playoffs. They were fifth. So 4 out of the top 5 all made the playoffs. Buffalo Bills made the playoffs. 5 out of the top 6 Minnesota Vikings. Are you starting to get it here, guys? All these teams made the playoffs except for one, and that was the Dallas Cowboys. So out of the 12 teams that made the playoffs in 2017, 9 of them were in the top 10 in rushing. If that doesn't tell you that you still need to be able to run the football to be effective, I don't know what does. But if you need more evidence, we'll keep going. We'll go to 2018. 2018. We'll take a look again. A lot of the same teams: Patriots, Chiefs, Texans, Ravens, Chargers, Colts, Saints, Rams, Bears, Cowboys, Seahawks, Eagles. Now, it's not as dominant, but I think it's still 7 out of the top 10. Seahawks made the playoffs. That's 1. Ravens made the playoffs. That's 2. Rams made the Super Bowl. That's 3. Panthers missed the playoffs. So 3 out of the top 4. Patriots won the Super Bowl. They were 5th in rushing. A lot of people think of them as this passing team. They were 5th in rushing last year. 4 to the top 5. Saints, 5 out of the top 6, right? So, I mean, there you go. And they were probably the best team in football last year. Again, another team that people think passing. The reason the Saints have been so successful in the last 3 years has been because they've been able to establish a ground game and balance out their offense. That's what the league is all about. Titans missed the playoffs. Texans made it. Bills missed it. And the Cowboys made it. So it was 7 out of 10 in 2018. Again, a pretty good ratio. 70% of the teams that were in the top 10 in rushing made up more than 50% of the playoff teams. And then finally this year, well, guess what, guys? In this so-called passing league and the run is dead, same thing. I think it's 7 out of 10 yet again. Ravens are 1. They made the playoffs. They were the number 1 seed. Niners are 2. They were the number 1 seed. And they're the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. Titans, they were number 3. They're going to be playing to go to the Super Bowl next week. Seahawks, they were number 4. They're still in it. They're playing the Packers today. So the top 4, all still in the final 6 teams that are remaining in the NFL. Cowboys narrowly missed the playoffs. Vikings made the playoffs. They made the division round, 5 out of the top 6. Colts missed the playoffs, but I understand why they're there. They have a great offensive line, much like the Cowboys. Bills made the playoffs. That's 6. Houston made the playoffs is 7. The Cardinals are only 10 because of Kyler Murray, who runs the ball. The Eagles were actually 11, who made the playoffs. But nevertheless, 7 out of the top 10 last year, 7 out of the top 10 this year, and 9 out of the top 10 in 2017. So if that doesn't tell you that the run is just as important as it's ever been, I don't know what to tell you. To have an effective passing game in today's sport, you have to be able to run the football. It's the same thing on offense as it is on defense. And that's all we keep hearing from our head coach, Joe Judge, unpredictability. Well, unpredictability tells me that you're going to try to be even on offense. You're going to try to run as often as you pass. Now, obviously, it's going to change from week to week based on opponent. But being that we got Saquon Barkley and being that Giants fans cry every single week about not running the ball enough with Saquon Barkley, I am encouraged to see a team like the Tennessee Titans yesterday beat up in Baltimore, the number 1 seed in the AFC. They beat them down physically. And if that doesn't pump you up as a Giants fan, I don't know what does, because that's Giants football. And that's what I think the New York Giants are trying to get back to. You hear Dave Gettleman talk about that old school approach, bringing in offensive linemen, bringing in hog mollies, establishing dominance at the point of attack. Drafting Saquon Barkley number 2 overall. What do you think he's trying to do? He's trying to emulate what the Tennessee Titans are. And a lot of people have compared Ryan Tannehill to that of a Daniel Jones. Obviously, we hope Daniel Jones is better, even though Ryan Tannehill has played phenomenal since getting an opportunity with the Tennessee Titans. And he's probably, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. I think the Titans are going to win next week. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But their dominance in the ground game, their dominance on defense has really, really reminded me of those New York Giants teams that won the Super Bowl. And that's the winning formula, guys. You point to Drew Brees, like I said earlier in the video. Drew Brees was putting up huge numbers. I remember the game against the Giants. I think we lost 52-49. They were airing it out all year that year, but they won like 6 games, 7 games. They missed the playoffs for like 2 or 3 years straight. They got Alvin Kamara. They set up the ground attack. They changed their offensive philosophy. He went from throwing for 5,300 yards to like 3,900, but they balanced out the offense, and it made them a more efficient team. They controlled the ball more. It kept their defense more fresh, and they won football games because of it. To the contrary, the Dallas Cowboys last year, they pounded the ball down your throat. They were a very good team. They beat the Saints in the regular season. They won the division. This year, they take the opposite approach. They try to air it out more. Dak Prescott, who had never thrown for more than 4,000 yards, threw for nearly 5,000 this year. I think he led the league in passing. I don't know if he finished there, but he was near the top almost the entire year. Cowboys had a very disappointing year. They finished 8-8. The ground game always sets up the pass, and the New York Giants have got to be that type of football team, especially when you've got a guy on your team like a Saquon Barkley. Now, of course, Barkley could be used in both facets of the game, which makes him special, but I want to see the Giants get back to that ground and pound attack. Bring back Giants football. Joe Judge talks about emulating the city, being a blue-collar team. Well, what's a blue-collar team? A blue-collar team is a team that beats you down physically, the way the Tennessee Titans did yesterday. I got excited watching that game yesterday because, like I said, it got me thinking of the days of Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw and running it down your throat. And I hope the Giants can get back to that. But, I mean, if this video doesn't show you that the run game is just as important as it's ever been, I don't know what to tell you. You know, people see Patrick Mahomes throwing for 5,000, Roger, everybody else, and I'm not saying quarterback's not important. But the ground game is just as important as it's ever been, in my opinion. And that's my take on it. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.